And we're back.
Huh?
We're back.
We are back. We hope that you guys are having a wonderful week. It is Thursday for us, so that is our Friday Eve, as we call it, which is lovely because I don't know what we're doing this weekend, but it better involve relaxing. Because I feel like we've been out every weekend. Like, it's insane. But
this lighting is crazy today. I look really ghostly right now.
I think you look ghostly every single video that we do.
No. Don't do that.
You were just editing yesterday. You look like a ghost.
No, it was a
He looked like he was the wall, literally.
It was a frame because the sun came through and shined and made us look bright.
Whatever makes you feel better. Our lighting will get better over time once we, get better lighting.
Get better lighting.
Anyway, we're back.
I'm half the host of Spiritual Love, Logan.
And I am your other host, Amara B. I'm not sure why he said that, but...
Because it's two. Half of two is one.
Then will we be co-hosts?
No.
Exactly. So it would be a host and a host.
Yeah.
So half a host?
Yeah, because there's two hosts. So... half a host is one.
I guess. Okay, Logan. Whatever you say. Alright, so... Anyway, today we wanted to have a conversation that's a little bit more on the serious side. Some things that you may not think about, honestly. So what are we going to be talking about today? See,
it's how. So, it's like how your words and how you interact with people affects them.
Yes, we're going to be diving into that today. Mm-hmm. So, let me ask you a question, Logan. So, why do you think words sometimes carry the weight as they do?
I think because...
why do you think words hold more weight than actions?
Sometimes,
right.
I would say because we are, as human beings, we're naturally emotional creatures, right? So we take things, we think deeply about things, even though words, like you could say things and we're going to take it
to heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, some people are better at not taking things to heart, but generally speaking, most people, if you say something mean to somebody, they're going to feel some type of way about it.
I also think it comes down to, the person that you're talking to. Because if you know that person very well, you'll know what words they say out their mouth. If they truly, were meant to be hurtful. Or if it was something that you should take a little bit more lightly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if it's somebody that you just met, it's hard to decipher that.
Yeah, because... If you heard the way me and my friends talk to each other, you would think we hated each other.
No, seriously. Anyway, so let's go ahead and dive into our first topic. So this topic, we're going to be talking about the weight of our words, right? So why do people often say things they don't really mean? Why do you believe that?
I think it goes back to what I said at first. We're emotional. So, if you're in a heightened state of emotion, whether you're angry, upset, or whatever.
So how does, maybe tone and your delivery plays into that?
Yeah. So, if you're angry and you be like, I hate you.
Right.
It's going to be hurtful to somebody.
I'm also...
Versus, think of it like this. What we originally came from, if I say something funny, your response is, haha, you stupid. To me, that's you said something funny. But up here in New Jersey, if you call someone stupid, it's like, you just call me stupid?
I think that's all, but that goes into lingo and terminology.
It does. Because
where you're from.
Even in Baltimore, right? You say, oh, you're stupid because someone said something funny. Yeah. You're going to understand it. But if you go to somebody like, man, you're stupid, then it's it's same words, but it's tone and the situation. Now you're insulting me now.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I feel like in my case, for for instance, I've had family members who would like text me and it'll be like all caps. Have you ever got like all caps text? And you like,
you yelling at me through this phone?
Yelling at me, right? What you trying to say? And it's like, right, and it's just like you could look at it in the sense of me looking at it. Maybe that person just likes typing in all caps, you know? Maybe it's always. I think people kind of go straight to thinking that someone is trying to do something to them, like hurtful, versus thinking like, maybe there's another reason why this is happening. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But I definitely am one of those people who is on that side where it's like, if somebody's typing me in all caps, or have you ever had situations where people put the ... at the end? And you're just like, what is the ... What does that mean? But I think it's just, it goes into the context of the person that you're around, knowing how they talk, and if it's somebody that you don't really know how to decipher the words and stuff, try not to take everything to heart. Unless it's just like, cause some people will blatantly outright be rude. Like I know you told me about situations where you worked at CBS where people were just like,
oh yeah,
out there rude.
They were just not even trying to hide it.
Yeah.
They were. I'm not gonna say what they would say on camera, but it was some wild stuff. And you know, I said some wild stuff back too, but you know that was the past.
Okay.
We've grown.
So tell us about a moment that you've had where someone's words struck you with a positive or a negative impact.
I guess I'm trying to think of a scenario. I guess when I was at work, again working at CVS, I was a pharmacy technician working in a pharmacy. People, you know, like I said, they would be very rude and negative, and like they'll literally throw insults at you because you said that their insurance denied coverage or they didn't cover as much as they thought. But then they'll make it seem like it's my fault, and they'll take it out on me because I'm standing right in front of them, and they'll like throw crazy insults at you, and I'll, you know, feel some type of way about it. When that was before I was saved, so I'll say some crazy stuff back out of emotion, like, don't talk to me like that. You know what I mean? Yeah, because I'll be on the phone with somebody, and they'll get really rude and nasty with me on the phone, and I'll be like, sir, ma'am, whatever. I'll be like, I'm trying to help you, and they'll be like, no, you're not, and I'll just hang up the phone. I said, fine. Or sometimes they will yell at you or cuss at you. Sometimes I wouldn't even say anything. I would just click.
Yeah.
And then it will call back even more mad, and I would click.
Have you had any like personal experience like with somebody who actually mattered? You know, like in a moment where somebody who's like a customer is kind of like, eh.
Oh yeah,
but if it's somebody who actually has some type of impact in your life, it could hit you a little bit differently. I feel like I've had a moment like with a family member. I don't want to name my family members because just in case they watch this, they'll be like, "Oh, you were talking about me." But I've had a moment with a family member where they said something that they didn't mean in that moment because they were angry about a situation that happened. I don't want to go into detail because then they'll probably try to decipher and know what it is. But they said something angry or mean in that moment along the lines of like I wish you weren't here type vibes, like along those lines. And it hurt a lot and it made me feel very sad and stuff. But at the same time, it was like, I know this person and I know they didn't really mean that. You know what I mean? I think some people just say things out of anger and don't truly think and decipher what they're saying before they say it. And I definitely don't believe that people know the actions of what's going to happen or the consequences of what's going to happen of like after what they say, you know, the impact that it's going to leave, you know?
Right. Yeah, because what you say and you've heard it is like, it's really hard to forget that.
I've even had moments where I've said stuff and I'm like, dang, did I say that?
Why would I say that?
Like, can't take it back now.
Oh yeah, that's another thing. Some people have that mentality where you'll say something crazy to somebody and then be like, well, it's out there, might as well just keep going and screw it. Yeah. Kind of like, you know, you ever been late somewhere and you're so late that you just stop rushing?
No, I would still rush.
Oh.
Because I'm a type of person who likes being on time. So that's different for me.
I know.
But I get what you're saying.
Yeah, it's like you're so late that you're like, why am I rushing? You just take your time. So it's kind of like...
It's like you dug yourself so far in that hole.
You might as well keep digging.
Keep digging, right.
Yeah, it's like a mindset. It's like, oh, well, I said it. It's out there. Might as well just screw it.
Yeah, but I think it has to be a point of that somebody is going to take accountability of their actions.
No, yeah, that's part of being an adult.
Yeah.
And being emotionally and spiritually mature.
Yeah, for sure. So let's move on into segment 2. So we'll start talking about when words hurt relationships.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so you want to dig into that?
Yeah, so like if you're in a conflict with a relationship with somebody, like a friend, a girlfriend, wife, husband, whatever, how can those words, you carelessly throwing words out or insults or something, affect that relationship?
It depends on the relationship. I'll speak of it in the terms of like you being my boyfriend, right? Mm-hmm. If I say something to you that is extremely hurtful or makes you sad, that will absolutely, I'm not going to say it's going to damage our relationship, but I definitely think it will mess with it depending on what was said. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So in the instance of it impacting your relationships, whether it be a friendship, a person that you're with, a person you're married to, I feel like it can definitely linger and kind of be like that baggage left on your shoulder where it's like, you just said that. You know what I mean? So I definitely think it can impact your relationship. What do you think?
I would say so. And I think, you know, like I said, what you said is out there. And it's hard to move forward with that kind of stuff, depending on what was said, you know. And I think that just tied into the Bible a little bit. I think that's one of those things. It's Ephesians 4:26. Be angry and do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your anger. So that being said, that kind of means anger is a natural emotion, but it says be angry and do not sin. So anger in its base form isn't sinful, like it's an emotion you feel, but where it comes a problem with you let it lead you into sin. And that's why it says don't let the sun set in your anger. That means don't let it sit there and fester into this, so that you become this just wrathful, angry person. I think that's what people start spewing out like poison with their words, because they don't sit and think before they speak. And that can really tarnish a relationship.
Well, and it's also important for the other person who is being impacted by this to be slow to anger, because something that person may say may make them automatically be like,
oh yeah,
jump to 100. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's so James 1:19 through 20. My dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry, because anger does not produce the righteousness that God desires.
And to break that down, to be honest, because this is actually one passage that helped me through my anger, because I used to be very snippy with people, right? And I never thought about the words that I would say to people. I kind of would just say whatever I said, and then it is what it is, and it impacts you the way that it does, and I did not care, right? So this is one of the passages that I actually read and looked into, and it was one of my favorite passages that I had on. You remember when we first met and I had like a wall full of stickies and it was all my favorite passages? That was one of my favorite on there. But anyway, to break that down, like the part that really spoke out to me, definitely the slow to anger, because I feel like every person instinctively, you always want to be quick to respond, right? So instead of allowing the news to digest and kind of just allow it to settle, and you think and, you know, really understand what that person said, you go immediately to your emotional response. and then you end up saying something that you don't mean. I think that's the moment that people get caught up in. So for me, the biggest part was being slow to anger, and then being slow to speak was important too. And that's why whenever we have like little disagreements and stuff, I kind of say, like, well, I don't really say. Sometimes you can see it on my face and like to kind of leave me alone in the moment or whatever. Yeah. But I always say, like, some point in the day I'll come back around and I'll be like, I just needed time to kind of chill out. Mm-hmm. And the reason why I do that is because of what used to happen when I didn't take that time to chill out. And I would say the first thing that came to my mind, and it would always be something that would be off the walls, offensive, or something like that. So I definitely think that, one, absolutely be slow to anger, but two, be slow to speak. Think about whatever that person is saying and digest it, really understand it, and then that way you can come back and you can speak to them without getting angry, you know? But that passage definitely helped me through a lot.
It's like that old saying, God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, so you can listen more and stop talking. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. Sometimes it's better just to not say anything at all. Yeah. So, but yeah, speaking of like talking to people and interaction and stuff, do you think there's a difference between honesty and just being blunt but hurtful?
Yeah. So my mom, she's one of those people who's blunt to the core and does not care how it impacts you, right? And I envy it, but I also am careful with it. Because when I was younger, I was very shy, which is probably hard to believe considering how outspoken I am now. But when I was young, I was very shy. I was very timid. And I kind of allowed people to just walk over me, right? But as I got older and I started to become more into myself, I became more blunt. I became more outspoken. However, I noticed that your bluntness can be a little bit, can be a little hurtful. Yeah. If you don't watch the things that you say and how you say it, right? Yeah. So I personally would choose honesty over, you said honesty, right? Honesty over bluntness, because I feel like honesty allows you, like, I feel like you can deliver something to somebody without it being like hardcore. Yeah. Punch to the stomach. Yeah, you know what I mean?
If I asked you, like, does this sort of look okay on me? And you would just be like, no, that's disgusting. You look ugly. Take it off. Right, exactly. Versus, I like the other one better.
Exactly. I feel like honesty in this sense that this is talking about, I feel like it has a little bit more of a pillow cushion impact, It's like I'm still telling you what I want to tell you, but I'm watching the way that I say it.
It's a soft landing versus like a crash and hard and burn.
Yeah, it's like that saying where they say it's not what you say, it's how you say it, right? So I think that that's what's most important to take away. Just making sure whatever you say out of your mouth, you're not being so sharp with it, but it's just more so of a like a, hey.
Yeah. I think a lot of Christians need to understand that too. Yes. Because I hear a lot of church folks be like, oh, you wear that to church? Or like, little smart remarks like that. Or like,
did I tell you one day I had a lady come up to me when I was a kid and I was wearing, granted, if you remember pencil skirts, I was wearing you remember pencil skirts? I think so. I was wearing pencil skirts and, like a tube top. And when I was younger, I had like a nice shapely body, right? So, of course, I can get why people would be like, oh, she shouldn't wear a pencil skirt and stuff like that. But I was young. Obviously, I wanted to do what I wanted to do or whatever. But it wasn't like I was out here just advertising, come and have me or anything like that. You know what I mean? And it was like, even though I was wearing a pencil skirt, I was still covered up. But long story short, she was a woman of God, and she came up to me, and she was like, Jesus loves you, right? And I'm like, yes. And she says, then why do you dress like that? And I was like, dang. Dang. Like, and I just feel like sometimes in that moment, especially when it's adult coming to a child, that's not needed. Especially if it's not your child. I did not know this lady. We was at the bus stop. I ain't know her at all. So, yeah, no.
Yeah, because it was also like, when it comes to like certain people or certain communities or something, I know some Christians could be come off very judgmental and rude.
Yeah.
Be like, you're gonna go hell because you do this, that, and the other. And I was like, well, that's not really.
And that's so judgment. First of all, as a Christian, I don't feel like you should feel comfortable with damning people to hell because you don't have any place to judge anybody. And I think as a Christian, a lot of people forget everybody had a past.
Yeah.
You know? And to judge somebody for what they are currently doing and not recognizing that you maybe once were in this position before too. I just feel like a lot of Christians need to kind of reassess their life. I actually think that Pastor Stephen was talking about that one day in church, and he was like, a lot, or maybe it was Pastor Philip. It might have been Pastor Philip.
It might have been him because
he was like some of y'all Christians need to think back to how you were before you found God.
Yeah.
You know, because you weren't pitch perfect either.
That's because it was the height of the Diddy stuff. We're still going on now, but it was like, because he said he saw a lot of people on social media be like, oh, that's disgusting. Why would you do that? Why would you partake in it?
Yeah.
And it's like I see a lot of people saying that stuff, but like some of you, doing the very same things in the past. Mm-hmm. So it's like, who are you to judge him on those things? When all of us, we all did some dirty stuff too. Mm-hmm. Like no one's squeaky clean. Everyone, we all did stuff. You know.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, any and everybody can be saved. Yeah. You know, everybody has a past.
No one's too far gone.
Nobody exactly.
Yeah, because granted, like the Bible doesn't say don't judge people. It says you should judge them righteously. Mm-hmm. Like if you see someone doing, like a family member or friend doing something crazy, it's okay to address it. It's just how you say it.
How you say it.
And then on top of that, you know, in Jesus' ministry in the Gospels, he wasn't going around damning people to hell.
Right.
You know, it's like the adulterous woman and those guys are about to stone her to death.
Right.
She said, those of you who have never sinned, cast the first stone. And they eventually, one by one, dropped their stones and walked away. And he told this woman, your sins are forgiven, sin no more. And he sent her on her way. So it's like there's certain ways to go about it and how you say it. Because Jesus did things very gracefully. Mm-hmm. I mean, because... And even in the temple, when he walked back into the temple and started flipping tables and whipping people with cords, because they basically turned... If you don't know that story, basically, Jesus, I believe he was back in Jerusalem, he walked into the church, saw that the Jews at the time were... They basically turned church into a massive, flea market, and they were all hustling people. There was people, and they're selling...
Pause.
Okay. Yeah. There was people in the temple selling all kinds of stuff. This isn't church. So imagine going to church one day and there's a bunch of people selling products, people panhandling, and they're clearly hustling people on these prices and stuff. Mm. And back then you go to take a sheep, bring it to the Jews, to the priest, and you have to have a sheep without blemish to sacrifice it, and they will forgive you of your sins. That's how you had to do it back then before Jesus. So I think Pastor Philip, he explained it pretty well. He said essentially what they were doing was any sheep that was yours, even if it was without blemish, you brought it to them. They will say, oh no, the sheep is blemished. Buy one of our sheep, and they will sell you a sheep at an outrageous price and try to get you to buy their stuff and buy their animals, and then they would slaughter it and sacrifice it and forgive you of your sin. They were doing crazy stuff like that, just ruining people's livelihoods. Mm. So Jesus saw it. He left the temple originally, and this is where I think we can learn from Jesus about anger and stuff, because there wasn't a time where he didn't get angry. He got angry, but he did it in a righteous way. So he went back to the temple after taking a day to think it over. He went back to Mary's house, I believe it was Mary's house, and he came back, and that's when he started flipping tables, and he actually had a whip of cords, and he started whipping them and basically kicked them out and told them how they turned his house into a house of liars and stuff. So it's like, you know, there's ways to go about things. I'm not saying go out there and start beating people and flipping people and stuff. But because you had to think about at the time, they also were plotting to kill him. Mm-hmm. and stuff like that. So, but you have to go about things in a specific way, and when you're angry, it's hard, but you really gotta think before you do things and say things.
Yeah.
And to judge righteously, don't be around here damning people to hell because they, I don't know, stole a pack of gum from the store. I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. So, to move on to our next topic, actions speak too.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think is worse? Saying the wrong thing to somebody or your actions causing pain to somebody?
I think they're both pretty bad, but I think they're equally bad, and I'll explain why. Because, you know that phrase, "Words, was it sticks and stones break my bones, or words will never hurt me." I think that's very misleading because it makes you feel like if someone says some craziness to you, then you shouldn't feel some type of way about it.
Right.
And I think that kind of gives people a free reign to go around and think they can just say whatever they want to people, and be rude and nasty, and be like, "It's just words, man." Like, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's kind of, to me, that's messed up. Granted, actions, they're pretty bad too. I mean, like you can say, "Oh, I'm gonna beat you up." Is very different than actually punching somebody in the mouth, you know?
I was about to say, I disagree saying that they're equal. I think actions will be worse than words.
Well, because you can also use your words to influence people negatively.
That is
if you have
true.
A platform and you say craziness, like, I mean, we're doing a podcast now, but like, anybody can get a camera and a microphone, start influencing the masses to do crazy stuff. Like, you could, if you have a big following, you could go out, start a riot. You know what I mean? You could use your supporters or people, your fans, and to get them to think a certain. You can get people to vote a certain way. You can get people to do certain actions. So that's why I think, depending on who you are, even if you like have a small friend group and like you start influencing people, you can really do some damage, or you can do good too, with your words. You know, if you.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying now. Because in my defense, I was thinking like someone physically doing something to you to cause pain seems like it would hurt more than words. But if you think about it in the way that you just did, like somebody influencing a whole group to act in a specific way, I can absolutely see how that would impact you like the same way.
Yeah, like the Cold War. That lasted like decades, and it wasn't that they call it a Cold War because it wasn't directly people fighting each other through action or hurting each other. It was through propaganda and advertisement and like espionage and stuff. People influencing the masses to either fear one thing and hate another thing, or to love and praise something else. And you know, you could make the same case now. Like, go on social media, how many people are so easily influenced by things? Very easily influenced. It's scary because like those people, they use their words and they can do a lot of damage, or they can also do a lot of good. So
I actually was showing him a video the other day. You remember the video I showed you with the I show him like a million videos a day, but it was the video where it was basically like a science experiment. They hired 3 actors to sit in a room, right? And they told the actors to stand up or sit down if they clicked this bell, right? So every time they would click the bell, the actors would stand up, sit down, right? So they had one by one a person come inside of the room, and they didn't know why they were there. They were just filling out an application for a job. And every single time they would see the actors stand up, sit down, the people who came in were like, okay, what's going on? Okay, let me join in. And they would stand up and sit down. And the people who came in who didn't join the act, they basically took them out of the room until they filled the entire room with people who were following the actors standing up and sitting down. Nobody said anything to them. Nobody gave them any, context behind anything. They just literally told them to go into the room and fill out the application. So no one told them to stand up and sit down, right? So then they took the 3 actors out of the room. And as this bell continued to ring, the regular people who came in that were being experimented kept standing up and sitting down, standing up and sitting down, standing up and sitting down, right? And that right there, the experiment in itself was just basically supposed to prove that people are easily influenced. No one has to tell you anything. You could literally just see something on social media, or you could hear somebody say something, and automatically, if you see there's a bunch of people rallying in a corner, you're gonna completely go and side with them, you know. And I mean, that's like, you know,
most people, not everyone does.
Not everybody does that, right? I'm just saying, for the instances of this experiment, they were proving that people will follow no matter, like, they'll follow blindly no matter what. And sometimes you don't even realize, like, you're being, you know, kind of baited into doing this, right? So
yeah, like, imagine if, like, your favorite singers post on Instagram, hey, we should vote, I'm gonna vote for this person, you know, this is why, get out there and go vote. How many of their fans do you think would go vote just because that celebrity said it? And not because
a lot.
If they were like, well, I don't agree with it, but this person said so my favorite singer is going to vote this way, so let me do that. People are very influenced, and there's a lot of people that will go along with it.
Yeah, absolutely. So
yeah,
I mean, obviously.
But like, the negative stuff aside, I think, you know, words, how you speak can also uplift people and build a better community and stuff. Like,
absolutely.
Like, if you listen to people like for example, a pastor who is a genuine pastor. You know, some pastors are they're not godly, but the good pastor, you know, like Pastor Stephen, Pastor Brian, Pastor Philip, you listen to them, they can bring a community together and preach the actual word of God and bring people together and do good with your words and stuff. Or like, you know, there's but that's what I was getting at. But like,
I think the deepest thing to take from this video really is exactly what you said, and then also making sure that you are just being slow to anger, you're being slow to speak. Make sure you guys think about what you say before you say it, and think about how it could possibly impact the people who are around you, the people who are important to you, right? You don't want to intentionally or unintentionally hurt your loved ones. You want to make sure you are saying things in such a clear way that's honest, but also not blunt to the point where it's cutting them deep to the core, right? Some people do need that tough love, but unless you know your friend or whoever in that way where they're okay with receiving something like that, it's ultimately down to knowing how people are, because there are some people who need that tough love. Like my mom, she needs tough love, right? Like that's just how she receives things, but I know that because that's my mother, right? You can't just assume that's how somebody is going to take it, because sometimes that's not exactly how they're going to react to whatever you're saying to them. So just make sure you guys have the right people in your corner and the right people speaking into your ear. You don't want to be so easily influenced by the things that people are saying, but also just make sure that you guys are, you know. Yeah,
and then like you should be honest with people, but don't be nice about it, but don't confuse kindness with
weakness.
Well, that, and then so kind that you feel like you can't be honest to somebody.
Yeah.
Like for example, if my breath stank, right? Some people might be like, in their mind, like, wow, that guy's breath stinks. But then it's like, but I don't want to be mean. I don't want to tell him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or like, just it's okay to be honest with people.
It's
against
a way
how
to
you
say something,
like, hey,
right? It's not what like you say; it's how you say.
Or like a subtle, I got some gum. You want some? Or
not even that. Like, hey, I don't know what you ate today. You might have, ate something that took you off a little bit, but you might want to go brush your teeth. You know, like that's something crazy.
So I got a travel toothpaste in my bag. I mean,
that sounded crazy. But no, just be nice to people. It's no point in being rude and angry and all of that. Honestly, people who are honestly always angry, I just don't know how you do it, man. You're only messing with your spirit. You're only messing with your own mental. And it's just like, why do you want to be like that all the time? Think kindness. God is kind, God is patient, God is love, you know? Be all of those things that God exemplifies, right? So, you know, next time you have a conversation with somebody, just think about how you want to speak with them before you do.
I also think you should probably be like slow to anger, and add on to that, be slow to being offended too.
Yes.
Because
my goodness,
a lot of people nowadays.
Yeah.
I mean, you could make one knock joke, and everybody in your DMs, everybody's like,
oh my god,
did you just say that? I'm like,
right.
Come on.
Not everything that somebody says is meant to be offensive.
Yeah, so you gotta think about it, even if it did come off like crazy, but you just slow down and think about it, like, hey, what did you mean by that? Or like, wait, well, let me think. Is that true? Or is that not true? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or like going back to the bad breath example. If you was to tell me, hey, Logan, I think, you know, you ate lunch earlier. You know, I think you should brush your teeth. Breath isn't smelling the best. And if I was like, how dare you tell me my breath stinks?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, think about it. Think before you speak. Even pray about it, too. If you got some time, just think on it.
And if you're a person who easily gets offended, maybe even, like you just said, pray about it. Pray to God to take that off of your heart, you know, so that you're not so easily offended by what people are saying around you.
Because you will live a miserable life.
Yeah.
Granted, I grew up a little different. My family kind of have to have thick skin.
Yeah, exactly.
You, like, they'll probably make you cry.
Yeah.
Honestly, because, like, you gotta, this world is a fallen world. Like, you just gotta kind of have to survive it, because only God's gonna be there to hold you. He's gonna be there to hold your hand and pick it up, but it's not like he's gonna hold your hand on training wheels your whole life.
Yeah.
Like, you have trials, you have tribulations. People are gonna be mean to you. People gonna say things that you don't like, you don't agree with. That's life.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Absolutely.
hard. You being offended over everything and taking constructive criticism. Constructive criticism. Like, you can't be offended over that.
Right.
You know, like, if someone was like in the comments would be like, hey, I think you guys do this with your podcast, make it a little better. I'm not going to be like, this is my back here. You know what I mean? I'm like,
thank you for your advice.
Yeah, thank you.
Take that into consideration.
I'm like, dang, you're right. Maybe we should get 2 microphones. Right. More lighting, obviously. Like, you know what I mean? So you just gotta, you know, think before you speak, and just be like, that was offensive in your mind. Just be like, well, why did you say that? Or just, you know, there's a ways to talk to people and handle conflict without spewing hatred right back.
Right. And that's why I said, you know, earlier to my same point of how I was that person, you know, and it took me being, you know, in a place where I had to really just take a second. Sometimes it's okay, just take a second and be around people who are okay with you taking a second, you know? If you have people around you who are like demanding an answer or demanding you to speak to them in that moment, and you know you're not in your right mind, probably shouldn't be around those people. That's just my opinion. But have somebody who is patient and that is okay with you taking a minute so that you can gather yourself, so that you don't have unnecessary, you know, arguments or conflict. Because honestly,
a simple conversation can save a whole argument.
Absolutely.
Like for example, men naturally want to fix problems. Women, correct me if I'm wrong, most of the time, women just want to vent. So, like, if you came home, you're like, this lady said this, that, and the other, I don't know what's going on, and all that stuff. And I was like, well, why don't you go and do that? And I try to fix your problem. You're probably going to get mad. Like, why don't you just shut up and listen?
Yeah.
See, that's when the communication is like, hey, can I talk to you? Or if you're the man, just be like, is this a venting thing, or do you want me to just fix your problem?
Yeah.
That right there will prevent a whole conflict right there. You just stop and think for a second.
I think that's part of the reason why we have such a healthy relationship, because he literally lets me go for days. I can talk, and he lets me go, and he'll be like, what? That's seriously? And you're right. Like, that. Sometimes women just really do want to vent. Like, we don't need an answer to every problem. Sometimes we just want you to hear what we're going through, and then just you being there is just enough support to get through it. Because,
like I said, men want to fix stuff. It's kind of like how our mind works. So I think it's kind of on the woman to be like, hey, I just want to talk to you about what happened today. And a man, if that doesn't happen, which is not going to happen all the time, as a man, you're going to be like, okay, you want me to listen or you want to help you?
Yeah.
That right there is both those little simple statements can save a whole conflict right there.
Yeah. You know what? So, we ain't even going to get too deep into it because maybe next week's topic will be about communication. Sure. So, we thank you guys for tuning into this video. This is episode 11. Woo! 11. That's crazy. But yeah, we hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure you guys give us a thumbs up and subscribe down below. Also, leave us a comment whenever you guys get a chance. And share the video. Share it with your friends. Share it with your family. Share it with whoever you feel like this video resonates to. Or if you feel like this is something that your significant other needs to hear, hey, whoever, share it to everybody, all right? But anyway, make sure you guys make sure you guys follow us on our social media platforms. All of our social media platforms are linked into this channel. You would have to go to like the about thing, and and every single social media profile is linked in there. So make sure you guys go follow us and stay tuned with us on there. We're gonna start posting on TikTok.
We're on Instagram and Spotify.
We're on Instagram. We're on Spotify. So you guys don't always have to watch our videos on YouTube. You guys can go check our videos out on Spotify if you're on the road and you want to still listen to the podcast. But yeah, we'll see you guys next week for episode 12.